Today I'm going to be reading from the complete Garielle Lutz. This is the first story from her book Stories in the Worst Way. It is titled Sororally. What could be worse than having to be seen resorting to your own life? In my case, there was a fixed sum of experiences, of people, to or from which I could not yet add or subtract, but which I was skilled at coming to grief over, crucially, in broad daylight. For instance, not too long ago I concerned one of the local women, a fruitful botch of a girl. We worked side by side, did data entry and lookup first shift in an uncarpeted, unair-conditioned recess of the ground floor of a bricky low-rise. I was forever taking her in over the partition of bindered reference directories that bisected our workstation. I would keep a sidelong watch over her as she ordered her daily allowance of cough drops in echelon on a square of paper towel. May the arms of other people be said to have an atmosphere? At the very least, may they be construed as aromatic systems of bone and down? Hers enjoyed, for my sake alone, an intimate publicity over the little dove-gray squares of her keyboard. And the pastime she had. You are familiar, at least, with those bubble packs that almost everything gets sold in nowadays. She used to peel the clear plastic bubble away from its anchoring cardboard, emancipate what she had bought. Yet another handset cord for her phone, maybe, or another pencil sharpener, or one of those tricky tooth whitening sets. Then stow into the bubble whatever she happened to have had. Blood-gaudy parabolas of dental floss, some saxophone-shaped lengths of black plastic that paired socks had hung from in stores, significant clothespins, masculine tissues. Reaffix the bubble to the cardboard base, then post the cold reliquary results on one of the cork tiles that lined the wall of a corridor where everybody, including me alone, could not help having to see. Our days, it turned out, held a lot of the same thing. Mornings would arrive piecemeal, filling themselves out little by little, summoning tiny inheritances from the previous day. Memorial resources in the form, say, of dust, suddenly abundant enough for us to thumb from our screens, until there were valid hours bearing us up and we could at least swoon away from our machines. My eyes would chance ambitiously into hers. The woman possessed an appropriately full, planet-like face. It had things on it I always took for something else. On her chin, for instance, a bluish streaklet that I assumed had to be ink. A bungled complexion, in short, and teeming features. Inquiry. At what point do people become environments for one another to enter? I was entertaining thoughts along these lines because I had only recently brought to an end a period of clandestine gender on my part, a period of not having allowed my life to register on any part of me that saw the light of day. I had now gone as far as collaborating with my body to raise a pivotal tilde of a mustache. One night, after work, under the ribbed dome of my umbrella, the one torn panel fixed over the back of my head, I thus led her to a restaurant. We perspired baffledly over our deep soups and did not look each other in the eye at first. I think I gulped around my food without eating very much of it. I have been told that I swallow air. I eventually started in on her, tendering the usual explanation, that people bandied together into little domestic populations and could be seen getting up and block from tables. I went on to be understood that I did not expect to ever be cooked for, but that I would probably never stop expecting to smell cooking. I brought my parents into it, too, how I was their descendant, someone who had come down from not too high a height, how I had one foot in the two of them, how in my reflection, in the green screen of my monitor, I could sometimes make out a riling rehash of their faces, how they were no doubt speaking right from that very moment at the top of my current voice. For her part, she told me that as a schoolgirl she had been dismissed late one morning with sticklets of charcoal and clunches of unruled paper, and had been instructed not to come back until she had made rubbings of what it was like where she lived. The fretwork along the upper walls, the nail heads and knots of the floorboards, every unevenness of her household, always pegging away at some fitting trouble, she said. People were always either coming into money or going through her things. She paid out her arms toward me slowly, so concealedly, across the tabletop as she spoke that I did not notice until her fingers had closed around my wrists. Then her room, an unsociable half-circle of folding chairs. One of the collapsible music stands erect on its tripod, the lyre-like shelf, where the music was supposed to sit, holding out an open telephone directory instead. A sink and a splashing faucet and stacks of hand towels, face towels, bath towels, washcloths. No bed, just some mats we had to uncurl. The lamp made a tinny, frustrated sound when I switched it off. I imagine I must have unbundled her, peeled off her underdressings, dipped my fingers into her, stopped and woggled them around, browsing, consulting what she had made of herself inside. Afterward, sink wash, sponge baths. Because some days the world holds true at the drop of a hat, don't you find? Things favor themselves. Whatever you reach for, our shimmered arm or parts unknown, is ready, finally, to have itself handled. Other days you can barely exempt yourself from what you might still be capable of. Instead of sleep, the most you count on getting is some cheesy quiet. It follows then, should it not, that in even the thinnest of light there are places at which to come to an accurate parting of the ways. At the most, I may have broken something, not too major or prominent of hers. In due time, though, I had her on the phone. Sororally, she was saying, as a sister. She walked off the job, or got herself promoted, reassigned, not long after that. I took it in my head to go back to the restaurant just once. I brought along a plump, companionable section of the Courier-Tribune, the part with the unremitting regional spot news. Swivel-eyed eaters took me in as I picked my way to the booth. How much harm could I have meant? A woman sat down, unaccompanied, to peer at me from the next booth. A much older woman, a differently futile ensemble of smells and noisings. I remember that during the progress of the meal, I had ordered one of the big busying specials. I disturbed the pages of my newspaper, spoiling them, melanchizing them with sudden prosperities of eyesight, despecificating the stories until all that was still binding in them was a vague and ungiving sense of people motioning dimly toward me from within their own cumbersome towns. I left off my reading and brought the paper down a final time, then stared ahead at the woman with the news and all I had done to it, still on view in my eyes. I exacted it onto her, confirmed it. This was as much as it took to get her up and going, her body irked forward by its click of meddling organs. For my part, I must have made a decision to see how much of the ink I could soap off my hands. To get into the men's room, you went through a door and immediately, no more than 2 feet in, discovered a second door, heavier, unpainted. And before you could get the thing open, you had to make room by reopening, by a good half foot, the one you had already pushed through.